Hello everybody, and thank you for joining me for another Scream Queens review. Today it is Season 2, Episode 2, Warts and All. This episode was decent. I thought it was about on par with last week. There's still a lot of setup and it's a little bit uneven, but I did think it was paced a little bit better. And overall, it still kept me invested in the show. So even though there were a few scenes that I didn't think were great, overall I thought the episode was fairly effective. So we start with a scene where we find out Chanel number 5 is still alive, which was pretty predictable, but it's okay because she's become one of my favorite characters. It also turns out she's a suspect in the murders that happened last week, which really makes no sense, but I guess you just have to go with it. And at the same time, Zayde is suspicious of the dean in all of this, wondering why she opened up this hospital to begin with. I'll get back to that in a minute here. We're also introduced to another monster of the week, so to speak. That's what I'm going to call them if we keep getting them. A new patient. His name is Tyler. I do have to say he was more interesting than the werewolf girl from last week. So that's an improvement, and I did like his relationship with number 5 throughout the episode. Also, Dr. Brock and Chanel are getting closer. They go out on a date, but Brock's hand isn't behaving too well. And there's a lot of potential for this possessed hand idea. We'll see where the show takes it. Also, Chad Radwell is back, which excites me because he was one of my favorite characters from last year. And his introduction is great as he's dressed up as last year's killer. It's a nice callback from last season. And this will also complicate things between Dr. Brock and Chanel, as you can imagine. So some other highlights of this episode. Number 5, trying to help out Tyler, the monster man, for lack of a better word, throughout the episode. She even beats up some guys who try and make fun of him. But I have to say the other Chanels are really mean to her through all this. And I'm starting to actually feel a little bad for number 5. So if that's the goal of the show, they're doing a good job of it. Also, we get a subplot in this episode where Zayde and Chamberlain, yes, he's back. He gets a little more screen time this week. They find out some info on a murder that happened earlier, and they suspect the dean. But when they go to Dean Munch about this, she says that the real reason is that something's wrong with her, and she needs to find a cure for it. So she seems to be covering her tracks, although at the end of the episode we might find out that something different's going on. Also, Munch has a run-in with the killer here who gets away. This scene was just kind of there. It felt like an excuse to get the killer into the episode more, basically. It was fine. Also, Nurse Ingrid pops up again, and she seems to pop up at strange, opportune times, and we're not really sure of her motive yet. Not much else to say about that. We also get to see Denise for a few brief scenes as Munch calls her back in to investigate things. And we also get a very strange scene with Hester where they're trying to pry her for information, and she seems to have completely lost it if she hadn't already. But really, the highlight of this episode, in my opinion, was all the Dr. Brock and Chad scenes. They were pretty amusing, fighting over Chanel, kind of fighting with each other. And things get even more interesting when Chad finds out some info that Dr. Holt's hand is probably possessed by that of a killer from the past. This storyline has a lot of potential, and it's the one I'm most interested in at this point of the show, the things between Brock and Chad. So that all leads to the climax of this episode, basically, where Zayde diagnoses what's wrong with the dean and tells her it's incurable. So things don't look too good for the dean. But the episode ends, of course, with our monster man Tyler being eliminated. Another character we hardly knew. And even though I thought the character was used pretty well, he feels just like a plot device. And I have to say, if they just continue to kill the monster of the week at the end of every episode, it is going to get very predictable and boring pretty quick, in my opinion. But we'll see. Maybe they'll vary it up from week to week. So some other weird things about this episode. Chad's friend Randall was in it, and those scenes weren't great. That's all I'll really say about that. And the soundtrack was okay, but I really thought they did a better job last year. It seemed more inspired. And just the overall charm of last season seems to be missing a little bit. It just seems a bit off. Overall, this episode was uneven, but I did think there were more good scenes than bad. And the episode made me want to come back in 2 weeks for the next episode. So overall, I'm going to give Warts and All a 3 out of 5. Still a solid episode that leaves me interested in this story, but thought it could have been slightly better. So a 3 out of 5 for Warts and All, and as always, thank you very much for watching.